What does being a superpower look like? Does a superpower start a war it cannot control? Does it start a war that impacts global oil prices? Does it start a war that hurts its own people? These are questions hanging over the United States of America. Washington can project power, but it's also staring at the limits of that power. It is struggling to control the consequences at home, the rising gas prices, the rising public anger, and its own narrative that is unraveling every day. So is this superpower losing control? Our next report explores.
For months, there was a real possibility of a deal between the US and Iran. A deal that could have cooled tensions, stabilized oil markets, and maybe avoided everything that followed. But then, just when peace looked possible, strikes happened, and everything spiraled. Iran retaliates, shipping routes get threatened, and suddenly, the world's most important oil choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, became a ticking time bomb. Remember, nearly 20% of the world's oil flows through that narrow stretch of water. You disrupt that, you don't just start a war, you start an economic shockwave. And that shockwave is now hitting ordinary Americans. Oil prices are rising, so are gas prices. A new national poll shows 80% of Americans say gas prices are too high. 2/3 disapprove of how the president is handling it. And here's the killer statistic. Among people who think prices will rise, 60% blame the US president directly. And this is where the superpower image starts to crack. Because global dominance means nothing if people back home feel like they're losing control of their own lives. And here's what the leadership is saying. Vice President J.D. Vance calls it a temporary blip.
Gas prices are up, and we know they're up, and we know that people are hurting because of it, and we're doing everything that we can to ensure that they stay lower. I will say, the president said this, and I certainly agree with it. This is a temporary blip, okay?
And then there's Donald Trump. On one hand, he's asking allies to help secure shipping routes. On the other, he says we don't need anyone's help.
I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
So what does US want? An Omani diplomat